Okay, great. I'll just start from the beginning. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Cameron Dennis from Banyan Collective here. I've been working at the Near Foundation for the last 2.5 years, primarily in business development and developer relations. I've worked on some, strategic projects, but mainly my role has been sort of in the realm of onboarding the core infrastructure projects onto Near, oracles, indexers, explorers, sometimes conversations with like the custodians, and the things that are just needed to make Near succeed or possible in the United States. And so now we did it. We checked all those boxes. Now it's about the more bottom up ecosystem growth. So Near is completely EVM compatible. We have Aurora, which is exciting. I'll dive more into this later, but today I'm pretty much just going to walk you guys through what's going on in the ecosystem today. What is this sort of transition to this blockchain operating system? This is a pretty big thing and should really make it easier for anyone in Web3 to start building in JavaScript, which is really cool. I know there's a lot of developers out there that want to become blockchain developers, but the learning curve is so high, either having to spend a lot of time learning Rust or spending a lot of time learning Solidity and then writing, a lot of bugs in your code and money getting lost. And it's kind of a nightmare. So not saying that JavaScript is the end all for security, but it is really nice to be working on a protocol that does lower the barrier of entry. So that's a quick overview for me. And this is a presentation I gave not that long ago, so bear with me if some of the slides are a little outdated, but I did get a good lowdown of other people in the audience here. So if you guys do have any questions, like this is a pretty small group, just stop me and ask. What I don't like to do is lecture at people for a very long time. It's boring for me as well. So feel free to like ask me questions. Cool. But I guess before I get started, I also have worked with a lot of other protocols. I have these two hats that I wear. I have my Blockchain Acceleration Foundation hat. I'm the founder of that. And we work with a bunch of different protocols to start blockchain development courses at universities, as well as provide student clubs like resources, whether it be like small money for food, or you need connections to speakers, or you need, travel stipends sometimes, not all the time. But yeah, we do help blockchain clubs, and I've been doing that for about 5-6 years. And I also co-founded the blockchain club at UCSB. So that's in Santa Barbara. So I do know the whole blockchain club scene quite well, and a lot of these different protocols quite well because I had to teach them. And so after teaching all of them, or about a lot of them, I came across Near, and it really just blew my mind. Mainly because it solved a lot of the problems that I witnessed firsthand, either trying to build apps or teaching people how to build, or just getting people onboarded into Web3, specifically around simplicity of onboarding, simplicity of building, the actual scalability of everything. And what's also really nice is that Near is carbon neutral. So I can unpack like all of these things separately, of course, but we have seen tremendous growth in the last year or so. It's been about 10x since December 2021 to December 2022. Over 20 million accounts on mainnet right now. Over 1,000 projects are building. As I highlighted earlier, all of that infra is already there, so we don't need to continue onboarding more oracles and indexers and everything like that. Like it's all there. Like everything that you'd want to do in Web3 is possible on Near today. So that's really exciting. And we also raised an insane amount of money in the last couple of years. It was about a $700 million round. And that means that the foundation controls around $1.1 billion, either in tokens or fiat, which is really great. And this is maybe seemingly a curse, but I see it more as a blessing. The Near Foundation is incredibly conservative, which means, we did have a grant program that we ran for quite a while, but we were not like a lot of the other protocols, like dishing out dozens of millions of dollars for ridiculous parties and stuff. We really are super European, and all this money is in like Swiss bank accounts, a lot of it in fiat. And so we're really well capitalized and will last for a very long time. I do want to give a little bit of the history of Near, but before that, the Near Foundation. This is where I've worked for the last 2.5 years, and I'm actually spinning out to run more programs in the United States to scale Near in the US. And so the goal of the NF is to raise awareness of Near, support the project's building, and provide a clear path to decentralization. I'm going to unpack these separately because people are always asking me, like, what does the NF actually do? Like, turns out it's a lot, but the goal here is to actually decentralize the Near Foundation. It is actually in the bylaws of the Near Foundation to decentralize. And I think apparently eventually completely disappear. Now, my guess is it's going to more change shape and completely disappear. But in the meantime, we do need this entity sort of dedicated for providing the support for founders. So this is in the form of grant programs. We have this thing called Near Accelerator, or now it's called Near Horizon. And this is to provide founders not necessarily grants, but the services. So like if you're a founder and you need an audit, it costs a lot of money and you need to get incorporated, but you're just a young professional that has an idea and has some basic MVP. Most of the time you don't have the money to go incorporate an entity in some other country, or spend $50,000 on an audit. So what this Near Foundation Horizon program is doing is it provides people just the services that they need, and then connects them to our VC sort of connection. Think of it like a referral arm. So as I mentioned earlier, we're backed by the best. Tiger Global, Pantera, Hashed, all these funds hold a lot of Near. But what's also really cool is that the foundation is incredibly intentional about how much Near certain funds get, because this is a proof of stake network, and it is we are incentivized not for no fund to have a lot of tokens, and the goal is to decentralize Near Foundation itself. And so the goal is for the ecosystem to actually be the largest token holders, and this means like project founders, builders, people who just want to kind of get involved themselves. And so a lot of the support these days is coming from Near Horizon, but the other really cool one is Near DevGov. So this is a soon to be DAO, but it's a program to fund public goods on Near. So think of it like if you are building a for-profit company, then you can go get services through the Near Foundation Accelerator program. But if you are building public goods, i.e. open source software that you intend everyone to use, then there's very, very clear paths towards getting that funding through the Developer Governance DAO. And so the goal is to actually start decentralizing this entity historically known as Near Inc., now called Pagoda, and spin out some of these functions like maintaining the docs for the Near.js SDK. That should be a community effort. And so this is what Developer Governance DAO is focused on. And a lot of clear ways to get involved if you are interested. Near Dev Gov on Near Social. I'll explain what Near Social is soon, but the TLDR is you can actually post a bounty if you have an idea that you want funded. And if you just are a builder that wants to work on a specific, like any random ideas, you can go to this board and see a long list of ideas to build. So like, Boss developer, gateway developer sprint. So this is like a sprint where you're collaborating with a bunch of other devs on shipping gateways. So trying to create this more like distributed work, kind of gig economy, like, community. So that's there now. I'll drop it here in the chat if anyone's interested. But Near Foundation has also funded a lot of different hubs. Banyan Collective is the US one for now. And so our goal is to be that more grassroots, bottom-up sort of support channel for founders. And what this includes is like meetups, hackathons, demo days, dinners. We host a lot of online workshops just for people to like get more involved in this time zone. So this is one of many. So we have Near Balkans, Near Vietnam, Near China, Near Korea. And the whole goal here at the end of the day is to kind of recreate a lot of the functions that the Near Foundation does in a much more decentralized way, where we have independent teams in these countries focused on providing those services to their people. Because I can assure you, Cameron John Dennis from Miami, Florida is not the best person to scale blockchain education in Bangladesh. Somebody in Bangladesh is the best person to scale blockchain education in Bangladesh. So this is where we have these hubs. And they will continue to grow as the right people in the community sort of come up and have the initiative to scale Near in their countries. So really cool initiative. I help tremendously with, I am the CEO and founder of Banyan, so focus on that right now. And I'm gonna stop there. Actually, one last thing is just like the brief history of Near. This is really cool. One of the co-founders, his name is Alexander Skidinov. He is first employee of a company called MemSQL, which later rebranded to SingleStore. This is a company that sharded databases for the largest tech companies in the world. So if Netflix gets, 10 million users in an hour, how do they actually scale their servers? Well, they shard them. So he's been doing this for quite a while, primarily in Web 2, and then had a pretty, he worked with like Microsoft research and a bunch of other really cool sort of more researchy things. And then met Ilya. They knew each other because they were both very deep in the international computing programming competition world. They're both Eastern European. Alex is born in Russia. Ilya is born in Ukraine. And so they got together to create a company called Near AI. Ilya is the co-author of a paper called Attention is All You Need. And Attention is All You Need, for those who are interested in AI, describe these things called transformers for the first time. This is a really big deal. The T in ChatGPT stands for transformers. And so what this paper is essentially, to summarize it, is you need a bunch of information to train a large language model, and that information needs to be labeled. The question is, who's doing the labeling? How accurate is that labeling? And what they were working on, Near AI, the first project for Near, or why Near started, was to pay people in a peer-to-peer way to label data for training LLMs. Now it's relevant because, Stability AI, open source, all the stuff, and there's this giant, pretty much arms race going on in AI. But the goal was, how do we actually ensure that Google, Microsoft, Amazon, these giant companies aren't the only ones that can control superintelligence? Really, what it matters is who's doing the labeling. And so if we had a crowdsourced way to do that labeling, we are 10 steps ahead in trying to create a user-owned superintelligence. Big mission. It's still not there yet. But the problem was, you need to do payments in a way that's cheap enough. So if you're paying somebody in Vietnam for labeling a data set and they're making 5 cents, the transaction fee can't be $1. It's not worth it. It needs to be fractions of a penny. So that's where they got together and actually designed a sharded blockchain to ensure transaction fees are always going to be fractions of a penny, so they can start building Near AI. That took about 4 years. Now the thing works. It all works. We have 4 shards on mainnet, 20 million something accounts, 1,000 plus businesses building on top of us. It's a big deal. So now Alex Skidinov, he is interested in the AI side. Ilya is most focused on the blockchain side. So it's all kind of coming together. I can't say anything else regarding that because there should be some cool stuff. That's all I can say. But next thing, I'm gonna stop there. Any questions?
I have one question. I think you're about to go. Go ahead.
You start first. Go for it. Go for it.
All right. I think you're about to get to it, like the developer friendly part, but like what does Near have that compared to like other layer ones or whatever, besides like the actual like JavaScript or whatever itself, eventually like the not having like to use Rust and everything, that like makes it so developer friendly?
That's a great question. So one of the things is a fraction of all gas fees can automatically be paid towards the initial contract that issued them. So creating a little, and granted, fraction gas for transactions is a fraction of a penny, so you're not making a ton. But assuming that you actually launch like open source, some product that actually gains a lot of users, you can make consistent money for that. The other thing is just that we invested so much time and energy into our docs and into our like tutorials and stuff. So it's not like, the meme in Solana is you're chewing glass. We don't want that. We don't need you chewing glass. We're gonna give you the dev environments, and we're gonna make sure the docs are super clean, that there are support channels for you. There are office hours almost every day these days, so you can actually talk to our developer relations team on Discord, like talk to them, and get your stuff answered. So it's not just about the frameworks for development, but also just the support that exists.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then
Go ahead,
I had a
please.
quick question on just I know you have this like phased plan for how you reach complete decentralization, and with Nightshade kind of interwoven with that. Would you be able to speak on that just a little bit and like kind of where we're at
Yep.
in this phase, in this roadmap?
Better than me speaking, as well as also you guys just checking out the roadmap. I can speak to it a little bit. I'm not on the protocol team. I can speak to, some of these big updates. And this is actually zero balance accounts have been merged. Meta transactions have been merged. These are really cool things. In short, meta transactions, any wallet can pay for any other like gas for another user standardized at the protocol level. That's amazing because you could just give an access key to an app saying, hey, you can pay for gas, and user doesn't have to click accept transaction every single time they want to like buy and sell an asset or do anything on chain. Because if we're really trying to onboard billions of people to Web3, we need to actually provide them a better experience than Web2. If it is worse than Web2, they're not going to come. We know that. So we need things like meta transactions and zero balance accounts, and like global storage and all the stuff to be there. Fiat storage, like you're able to pay storage in tokens that aren't near. If you're trying to onboard, huge Web2 companies, they might not want to use near. They might want to just use USDC. Now we want them to use near, but that's not, people should have the option. And so definitely look more into this roadmap if you're interested in checking it out. I did drop it in the chat. And also I'm just going to drop attention is all you need in case you're interested there. And then what else? Oh, the developer governance gigs board, super important stuff. This to me is one of the coolest initiatives because, a little bit of like why I'm in Web3. I don't think the world is inherently broken. I don't think like the trees and the rocks and the wind, there's anything wrong with them. It's the incentives that power the world, which leads to its like, giant inequality and, the world burning up and this whole bit. So that is powered by money, or really incentives. And money is at the root to that incentive system. When I read the Ethereum white paper in 2016, it blew my mind because I'm like, holy crap, this is the first time we're able to program money. And, I wasn't even that much of a programmer, and I'm still not today. I don't consider myself like a professional engineer, but it did actually inspire me to like learn Solidity. It was like, I can now program money. Like that's a huge thing, especially when the whole rest of the world doesn't have secure money systems. And so that's kind of what led me down this path. And as I've been down the path, I've realized there's all these prerequisites to mass adoption. In a nutshell, it's key management, liquidity, because you need money to go around, make the thing work, ownership infrastructure, i.e. NFTs, coordination tools, DAOs, verifiable privacy, which is ZKPs or permission shards. There's many kind of solutions there. And then finally is like those killer apps. And I actually think for there to be like large scale killer apps, we need privacy baked into the protocol. Because I don't want all of my everything on a public immutable ledger. That's ridiculous. That's a dystopian future. And obviously it needs to scale. And also, if the open web is only written in some random domain specific language that only 50 engineers in the world understand, it's not that open. We need to be able to audit it and to say, hey, any JavaScript developer in the world can see this code and be like, hey, I know where my money's going. I know who has access to this account. I know, there's a lot of important transparency that needs to be there. So that to me is why and I really do think that like all these chains, including Near, is just a means to an end. That end being the open web, where people have the option, really important, to own their own money, data, and governance without a third party. Now, I just think Near is the fastest path towards that end. If there's, yeah, what's up, please? Yeah, Cole, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just curious. So is Near on JavaScript? That may be a dumb question. I'm an econ major, so I'm not good at the developer stuff.
So the way it works is it's what we call like WASM based. So everything compiles down to WebAssembly, which means that you can write in any programming language that compiles down to WebAssembly, you can write smart contracts in that language. Now, there is tooling and frameworks around writing contracts to those languages. So right now, we currently have very robust tooling and education material and everything for Rust, JavaScript, and Solidity. You can do anything, really. You can create SDKs for most of these languages, anything that compiles down to WebAssembly. But the Pagoda team, and this is where your developer governance is going to, pretty much take the torch, is what are we prioritizing when it comes to the languages that we want to support? It's an open ecosystem. Anyone can go create. If you want more TypeScript SDKs, you can go do it. If you want more, Python tooling, you can go do it. And so this is where you can actually get the support for your projects if you are interested. And we consider all these things public goods via your developer governance DAO. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I just asked because we met with the head of DevRel at I think Arbitrum a few weeks ago, and they were bragging about how they're the only ones who allow like development on JavaScript. And I was pretty sure that wasn't true. It's kind of the same thing as like how all the L1s, they claim to be the premier blockchain, or all the exchanges were the number one exchange, and it's like, well, you're not, but okay.
Yeah. See, that's where I actually love Near's conservatism in a way. It's like, we honestly, it wasn't until recently, and I've been at Near Foundation for the last 2.5 years, and I've seen this thing pretty much from when it was nothing. We were really bad at marketing in the beginning because it was a bunch of engineers only speaking to other engineers about the cool engineering thing. Retail doesn't give a shit about sharded architectures. Now, what we do is we ship and then we market. We don't love to create all this hype around something that doesn't exist, because we've just seen that happen time and time again. And although like we definitely suffer in the short term about, from building that crazy hype, we actually, when it comes to, traditional markets, sure, we might suffer. But when it comes to smart money, we have more money than anyone. We have runway longer than anyone. This is exciting. We don't need to pump these markets and, do all this crazy hype stuff. We want to build the open internet. That is our mission. And so, yeah. And by the way, there is another, and I'll be like, Near's not the only one that does JavaScript either. In Cosmos land, God, what's it called? I know the guy's name. What is it? I found out Cosmos JavaScript like chain. It's Agoric.
Yep. Agoric.
They have JavaScript support. So that's just as disingenuous, to be totally frank. Or maybe they're just not educated. So give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So check out Agoric too. If you're a JavaScript developer, like try all these different things. Like see what works best for you. I think that's really what the best tech is going to win in my eyes. People are, going to scoff, but to be totally frank, these are really, really hard problems to solve. And if you don't prioritize technology, the chain will fail and users will leave. We've seen this happen time and time again. Look at Terra. Solana's not doing so hot. Like there's issues all around. And I actually want there to be more experimentation because, again, all these chains are just a means to an end. But I truly think that this is the best architecture for long-term mass adoption. That's just my opinion. But there's caveats, and I'll tell you about the caveats. In a sharded blockchain, transactions across shards are asynchronous. What this means is you can't do certain things like flash loans because the transactions they actually need to kind of get executed at the base layer, not in the same block. And that prevents certain use cases. Now, the cool thing here, in my eyes, is that we're actually solving for problems, synchronous transactions across shards. That is a big issue that no one has solved, that people, especially L2s on Ethereum, will have to solve eventually if you want full interoperability between two different L2s. And so we're already figuring that out like for Near. These similar practices will probably be, re-implemented. Everyone's talking about like account abstraction right now in ETHLand. We've had account abstraction built into the protocol, standardized across every single contract and every single account since it launched in May 2020. So like we're constantly ahead of the game when it comes to the things that really matter for mass adoption. But what we've kind of lacked in the past is that kind of killer app or people pumping markets, to be honest. Like we just don't do that. Like we just will not do that. We are here for the open web. We're not here to like go to jail. So yeah, really important to note. So yeah, this is a little bit, so I guess I forgot to mention, every account on Near is a smart contract. So you guys can check it out if you want to learn more. Actually, who here, does everyone have a Near wallet? Like, have you actually experienced this yourself? Yep. Okay. So you know that like accounts are human readable. That's a pretty big, it sounds so basic, but it's a pretty big step in the right direction because there's no way in hell I'm onboarding like my mom or Beyonce's fans or anyone to Web3 unless with a 64 character hexadecimal public key. Like it's just not going to work. And I know this because I've tried for about 6 years with BAF. And we need to simplify this. The second thing is like permissions through access keys. Like I can give you, Sebastian, access key to manage my NFTs, and you and Cole an access key to manage my DeFi apps, and Jared one just to make sure that like if I die, then Will is able to, you guys are able to put your keys together and get access to my NFTs that Sebastian is holding. Like it sounds super complex, but this is all possible at the protocol level. This is a part of the account model, not a third-party smart contract. And that's important to note because one, it means it's all standardized. Two, there's a lot of really important use cases, and we've seen all the hacks in this space. Like, and I'm not saying this, I'm not at all trying to cause FUD. This has not happened, but like, God forbid, Gnosis Safe gets hacked. And like everyone who has a multi-sig wallet with them is at risk. If that were to ever happen on Near, it would have to be all the validators participating in attacking the network. And so like it's at the protocol level. So I think that's pretty cool. And it does actually help with like building contracts because you're able to just enable your users to give you access to a certain access key. So you don't have to have them constantly signing transactions and all this other stuff. And in short, it gives you like the ability to provide your users with better experience. And another one is mutable storage. So you don't, in order to store things on Near, it does cost money because this is a blockchain and someone's got to pay. But you can actually get the money back for that storage payment if you don't want to store it anymore. And so that is, you'll notice this if you ever like ship contracts or do stuff, and it's a very straightforward experience. So this is all sort of like high level benefits of the account model. If you want to dive into this, you can either, check this out, but you can reach out to me directly. I have a ton of resources on this. And Sebastian, when you were talking about like, what about the developer experience? Like there are like full on online tutorials, example labs, like everything is there for you to learn about this. What else? So yeah, what's up, William?
Just out of curiosity, what interests you most about the future of the open web, and do you have any fears in like its upcoming development?
Yeah. So one, I'll start with the negatives to end on a positive note. One of the biggest fears is that everyone is claiming to be decentralized, and none of this shit is decentralized, and people are essentially being sold snake oil. And I don't like that at all. I actually like USDC because it's transparent for what it is. It's not trying to convince you that it's some decentralized stablecoin. It's like, gonna be pegged forever. It's straightforward. Now CBDCs scare me. The attack on freedom of speech in the United States scares me, assuming that code is speech, which has been constitutionally upheld historically, but sanctioning open source code is a very, very scary road to go down in the US. So that is not good. I think that this industry is going to be pushing up against I can go on about it. And it gets really scary. Like it actually, I know people who have died. This guy he's very controversial, but Michigan, I butchered the spelling of his name. But he was the co-founder of MakerDAO. He created Balancer. He created Wrapped ETH. This man is a legend in Ethereum development, and he died. People say he drowned to death. Others say he was murdered. I fall into the camp that people didn't want the things that he was building to be out there in the public. He may have pissed off the wrong people. There's a lot of people brushing up against people in powers of society that don't like to be brushed up against. So he drowned off the coast of Puerto Rico this last year, and a lot of people who were speaking out about it have been asked to be silenced. So that's scary. And that's like talking about the bad. That is kind of like where I can see a lot of this going down. And when it comes to US I guess dominance, you don't need crypto to destabilize the US currency. We're already seeing this today. All these other countries are now settling their international payments in their native currencies. And although I'm an American and I'm incentivized for the US dollar to be used as reserve asset for paying transport, but at the same time, I have a lot of international friends and they think that's bullshit. And they're like, why do I need to pay in dollars as an Italian to transact with the Malaysians? Like, why can't I use the euro? Like, this to me is kind of something that I think should be done in different currencies, just because it's borderline authoritarian for the US to try to control the entire world. So I'm anti-authoritarian. I'm not anti-US. I'm just anti-authoritarian. And so this is where I think crypto will push the bounds and kind of force some really hard dialogue in the United States. So that's a negative thing. Could be a positive thing. And when it comes to good things, I don't trust companies to store my data for me. I don't everything gets hacked. Like literally Google's been hacked, Microsoft's been hacked, all your favorite tech companies have been hacked, and they have the best security in the world, and they're not going to get hacked, and then they do. And so I hope there's not a crazy day of reckoning where everything is or super intelligent AI causes a supply chain attack and all of our data is made maybe open, or there's just a lot of weird shit that can go down. So what I think the future of the open web really is I am verifiably owning this data. Here's my private key that matches to my public key that proves this. I can provide people what we call optional or selective disclosure to show them the things that they only need to see. With the development of zero knowledge proofs, this is becoming more and more possible. Granted, there's still a lot of barriers of mass adoption for this. The hardware requirements are high. It's computationally expensive. There's some issues there, but Web3 is the thing. The open web is the thing that's pushing a lot of this funding and research to actually happen. So I think all that stuff's really, really good. It's going to provide people much more freedom. I think access to new financial products that they weren't able to access before. Now, we still have a lot of issues here with liquidity and stable coins that parade themselves as decentralized when they're not, and then the rug gets pulled and then everyone gets fucked. So there are certain things that definitely need to be addressed. But yeah, overall, I do think that this technology can sort of enable more freedom, transparency, in my eyes, in the funding of public goods. To me, I'm not anti-government at all. I just actually think that the government doesn't always prioritize the needs of its people. And this is extra true in different governments, not just the United States. In the United States as well, like, my friend in Oakland can't call the police to get the car moved because the police just won't show up. Like if someone's parked right in front of her driveway, like it just won't happen. And so like there might need to be new ways to fund public goods for when the government cannot. And I do think that programmable money can kind of help accelerate that. Hopefully that helps.
That was great. Yeah, that gave me a lot of insight into different things.
You're muted. Can anyone else hear him?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that though. Yeah, that was great. That gave me a lot of insight. This might be a stupid question, just kind of on top of that. Do you think AI will play any kind of role in like government regulations, like dictating types of things in the future?
Yeah, we're starting to see like there's a couple like Chinese courts that have used AI, and it's not going to start in the United States. It could help for like, evidence aggregation or, some sort of more unbiased approach to things. Now, again, AI is really just one second. I might have to go let someone in real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah. That part about that guy getting killed, it's crazy. That's probably why like everyone stays anon though in this culture.
Yeah, I remember seeing that last year, and it was not good. I remember watching live on Twitter, like him talking about everything leading up to it, and basically claiming this is what's going to happen, and then a day later, everything he said happened. So,
wow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was watching like a documentary on it. I'm pretty sure there's a couple other stories like that. Yeah, crazy stuff.
Hey, yeah, spooky stuff. I don't think it's the US government. Like I don't know who it is. I just know that he was also incredibly loud and pissed a lot of people off. Like a lot of people. It could be like Protocol Labs and Circle and Coinbase, and he could have pissed off his neighbor. Like could be a wide variety of shit. So not claiming that this is the government by any means. Now, not saying it's definitely not the government, but I don't know. Nevertheless, long rabbit hole we can go down. So yeah, I mean, this is some cool, like, I guess, like protocol developments that have happened in this last, but honestly, a lot of this stuff is moving further ahead than expected. So many transactions were passed, allows third-party sponsored transactions on behalf of users. This SecP 256 R1 key support allows iPhone users to have implicit accounts on chain. There's a really cool, and mobile, the whole world's not going to be using laptops to interface with the open web. It's all going to be mobile. Like in the US, we have laptops and it's nice, but the rest of the world, a lot of people even program on their phones. Like you would be very surprised how many people do this. And so, we need native support for iOS and Android, and that's coming. And then we have storage costs. This is a big one. You could allow users to pay in any type of currency, which is cool, and allow users to set up a near wallet without needing storage. You can do this today. It's just that the accounts aren't human readable. Because if you think about it, imagine if there was no prerequisite to having a human readable account, there'd be a little bit of an issue with claiming every name of the world, or writing a bot that just claims names all day. So you need that like minimum storage account. And then this one's meta as hell. Is how do you run WASM in WASM? And so to be honest, I'm not a subject matter expert here. And let's see. Yeah, like it just enables you in short to run transaction, like run code, run a smart contract in your smart contract, 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 which I don't know the exact use cases for, to be frank. Here's some slides. Near's carbon neutral. It's through buyback programs, but also it's a proof of stake network. So the protocol itself doesn't really use that much energy to begin with. We did like every year we have to report like all the carbon that is being sort of emitted through the Near Foundation and its affiliated, like or the protocol, really, the Protocol Foundation. But the thing that actually emitted the most carbon were the flights of the employees of the Near Foundation going to different conferences. And so that is the most carbon intensive thing about Near, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So there are a lot of conferences as well. So that's pretty much it. There's some slides just about like, I guess this is introducing the blockchain operating system. The whole point, actually, I'm gonna take a stop here before I dive into like this blockchain operating system. Any questions? Nope. All right. So in short, Web3 sucks. TLDR. It's really hard to build on. Bridging assets, wallets are difficult to manage. There's a lot of, we're not positioned well for the masses right now, at all. And so what we need is a one-stop shop where any developer is able to host their front end on chain. This is a pretty big, I'd say, bottleneck of this industry, is that, Uniswap Labs maintains the front end for Uniswap.com. If the US government wanted to say, hey, Uniswap, your money transmitter, shut down your services, they can say, hey, our users, the code is open source. You can use the command line to interact with our contracts. Most people will not do that. So and the reason why one of the choke points is who's actually paying Vercel or the hosting service for the front end. And so you can actually have this paid for peer-to-peer, stored on chain. Since Near is WASM based, you're allowed to throw that React code in a contract and host it on Near. This is really cool. And the reason why is because you can now start allowing Ethereum users to transact on Ethereum layer 1, pay the high gas fees, that's their choice, but host their front end on Near and have one field of view to connect with any app across any chain, as long as their front end is hosted on Near, and through one field of view. Otherwise, you have to be bridging assets. You have to start, going to different websites. It's all this other stuff. How do we create this sort of like operating system that allows developers to kind of develop what we call a component-based design? And I might be able to show you an example of this. Maybe not. I don't have the slide for it, but in short, I'll just show you in person. What the hell? I'm sharing my screen. So Near Social. This is one of the gateways. And the whole point here is we want people to build different components. A component is this newsfeed board, or this poking activity feature, or this follow activity feature, or your applications list. These are all separate sort of, like UIs and for certain functions. The goal is to have any sort of front end be broken up into all of these little components. Like, what is Near Social? Like, this is a component. This documentations button a component. Open source all these separate components and allow users to be able to create their own front ends through these components and plug into any contract backend that you want. An example of this would be like, hey, like Sweatcoin. This is a move to earn app that's totally Web 2. It's had over like 120 million downloads historically. Lots of demand and they were Web 2. The way that they did it is you generate these points, these sweat coins. You're able to trade them for like Lululemon pants or new pair of shoes or something like that. But now they wanted to actually make those sweat coins more fungible. And so you can then take those sweat coins and turn them to USDC. or put them into some vault and generate yield or DeFi shenanigans. But the whole point here is making this historically illiquid asset more liquid. And so why am I bringing them up? Well, they launched on Near. They brought a couple, I think like over like, I think it was like 4 million users in a day to Near. And the protocol didn't blip in terms of like, gas prices didn't go up. Network didn't halt. There's no issues on that front. Like the protocol works. And that to me is just a pilot, like it's just a case study, because we're not going to onboard billions of people to this space by getting them to download a MetaMask wallet or even a Near wallet for that matter. It's giving them services that they actually want and giving them the option to exit to Web3 if they see the value of owning their own money, data, or governance. And so this is a perfect example. To me, it's a pilot, and it proved that the protocol can scale. The reason I'm bringing them up is, let's say they wanted to create a decentralized exchange, but they don't want to go and launch, a Uniswap competitor. They just want to use Uniswap, but they want it branded as their sweat coin exchange. They can just take that Uniswap AMM component on your social or on this blockchain operating system and change the CSS of their front end to be branded as Sweatcoin, but using Uniswap's sort of like engine on the back. This is kind of what we call component-based design. And to me, it's the ultimate play for interoperability, because I am not confident in most bridges. Bridges scare the shit out of me. There's been billions of dollars of hacks in bridges. I don't bridge my assets personally. If I want to move money from one chain to another, I'll put it in a centralized exchange and sell it and buy it on the other network, and then move that money into another wallet. And the reason why is because when you're bridging something on a multi-sig bridge, you're just giving it to a contract, trusting that contract to recreate the same asset on the other end. And guess what? That contract gets hacked all the fucking time. Like billions of dollars have been lost here. So I'm not optimistic about bridging. I'm more optimistic about not trying to dominate the sort of execution layer and have Near become this monolithic giant thing where everyone needs to host their contracts on. No, just store your contracts on chain, allow your users to have one point of view to access any app in Web3, and allow developers to operate in this more sort of like component-based design, development strategy. So I like that a lot. To me, it's like genuinely innovative for this space. It's something that hasn't been seen before. Everyone's trying to create their own L1 and L2 and L3 and L4 and dump on retail. That's just not what we're doing. We really want to build the open web. And this to us is like the best path. So this is kind of what we call a blockchain operating system. And this is also known as the boss. So Near is the boss, is in short, the framing. So if you want to go tweet that, you'll get some likes. But yeah, so I guess the whole point here is there's a huge push to interoperability through the blockchain operating system. We're working very closely with a lot of like Ethereum projects to host their front ends on Near. I'm just seeing your question, Sebastian. Question, do you think to onboard more users, it includes making wallets better or totally integrating something completely new? It's a great question. Sorry to answer it this way, but it's both. We need better wallets, but at the same time, I think it's the way to get billions of users in the space is actually building something that they want, giving them a good experience, and then giving them the option to exit into Web3 and own their own money, data, and governance. If they understand what that means, they understand the risks of it, and it's easy for them to do. Now, my job is to make it easier for them. So this is where, I think starting with a flexible account model is a prerequisite, because you need to arbitrarily manage access to these accounts, very similar like API keys in Web 2. And then you can even start these sort of like hybrid approaches. I like to call this like optional custody. So I can, let's say, and this is not live, this is just an idea that I'm sort of circulating around the industry. How can I give BitGo or Coinbase an access key to recover my account, so my mom can recover my account if I die. The problem is that these institutional custodians don't love custodying keys for retail. They're fine doing this for huge investors or like big enterprises, but they're not so keen on doing this for everyday people. So because it's just a lot of work, it's a lot of risk. It's like there's a lot of legal liability, being a registered custodian. And so when it comes to integrating something completely new, I would say that thing is actually this more like hybrid custody approach, where Cameron has the option of being totally crypto native anarchist guy who has everything on his ledger and doesn't want the government to touch it. Or I can say, hey, I have everything on my ledger except for my, I don't have these, but multi-million-dollar NFTs that I want custodied by BitGo, and I can revoke their access if they misbehave. It's not like it's fully, they have custody of the asset, but I have a full access key to revoke their access for whatever reason. You could even bake in the payment system to pay BitGo in that access key. So this is what is not there yet and needs to be built. The only issue is that we need these institutional custodians and centralized exchanges to play ball. They need to be open to custody retail keys. Coinbase does this, but not for access keys. They don't want you to just be able to like easily revoke. They want to have full control because they have custody of that money and they make money on that money, as we've seen time and time again in this space. and finance generally. Like the whole point of like banking is like, how do you have people's money to go borrow more money from the Fed? Fractional reserve banking. I hope you guys have chatted about this. But yeah, so in short, I just want this like optional custody approach, and that would be something completely new. And a prerequisite to this is account abstraction. So you can't do this if every wallet's just a signed transaction wallet. You need to be able to like arbitrarily manage access to these accounts. Check. Makes sense. All right, great. Cool. So let me walk through a little bit of like, the BOSS like architecture here. The whole thing is like blockchain is the BOSS, blockchain operating system. Then you have the choice to choose like the network. So this is where like you can have your contracts on Ethereum or Solana or Aptos or whoever. And as long as that front end is hosted on chain through a gateway that provides their developers to host their front end, then there can be this one-stop shop. My interest right now is how do we get more people running protocol-specific gateways for different ecosystems? So like, Will, I know you've done a lot of work in the Solana ecosystem. Like there's, I think, a huge play here for somebody to run a Solana gateway for Near to say, hey, all Sol, and by the way, this launched like a month ago, by the way. This is like brand spanking new. So we don't have a Solana gateway right now. This is still super early, and there's a lot of opportunity here. Because you could even bake in your own revenue models. Hey, you want to use our gateway? Like you want to host your front end on chain forever? Like pay us a monthly fee. Like Vercel does this. Why can't you? So this is a gateway for Ethereum apps. And so like you can use Lido on testnet. Like it should say open. I need to connect. You can just use some of these apps. Like this is all on chain. The front end, the contracts on Ethereum, front end's hosted on Near. I'm able to like stake via Lido right here. That's pretty cool. Like to at least I think that's pretty cool. So this is the Ethereum gateway for Near right now. It's called boss.gg. Now the next thing is like social. Everyone's talking about Lens protocol and decentralized social media and all this stuff. That's cool. Yeah, Will, what's up?
So for hosting the front ends on Near, does that like just cost like one fixed gas price, or is it
Storage
continual?
cost. Yep, storage cost.
Okay, so just like every is it how does it charge you every day, just like a little bit of near out of your wallet, essentially?
Nope. So that would be you. Well, so it costs, so the person who's running the gateway, I don't think pays this stuff right now. The people who pay are who's storing the front end, because they're the ones that have to, well, store it and pay for that storage. Now, if you kind of like abstract that experience away from them, you can charge them a fee. And it can be peer to, it's like the cool thing here is just it can be 100% peer to peer, or like and automated payments. It doesn't need to be yeah, like everything could be totally on chain, which is neat. So
Awesome.
there's a lot of materials out here. We are actually like Banyan, we help with some of these docs. And so let me see. Let me just pull up some of these resources for you guys if you want to like learn how to run a gateway, learn how to run a viewer. Like there's ongoing developer support in Telegram as well. So, and there's like funding opportunities. So like if there's like if anyone's like really interested in building out these components and like, you know, different gateways, like there are actual grant programs for this. So I just dropped a bunch in the chat. There's a blog post that describes everything. There are the docs. There's, you know, what is a gateway, but actually what I would recommend to start with is this workshop
Cool. So
where Ilya, the man, is giving a workshop to honestly nears like all of our investors and all of the founders and all like the key people about Boss. And guess what? We open it. Like this is the goal. Like we don't want there to be this like giant information asymmetry here. Like we want people to know about this. So Ilya, Boss presentation. So something I didn't explain is these components are completely composable with any gateway. So even if you build a, you know, front end for Uniswap for, yeah, if you host the front end for Uniswap on Boss, you're able as a component, you can take that front end and bring it to your gateway of choice, because this is just a composable component. And this is where this thing called FastAuth is really, really interesting. I can't dive too deep into it, but the whole point, because there's gonna be like a big announcement and all this other stuff, but this is like a little teaser, so I can tell you a little bit, is how do you, yeah, they're like, yeah, okay, cool. There was more information than I thought. So in short, how do you really, really easily onboard somebody? How do you give someone a public-private key by scanning their face and allowing them to store it locally on their phone until they have a certain amount of money in that account? And you want to give them the option to custody with a third party, write down their 12 words. You know, this sort of idea of like progressive onboarding is really important, because if you just try to throw people into the fire, especially like a lot of your like club members who are just learning about Web3 for the first time, they're going to lose their keys. Like, I'm sure of it. So you need this like very fast way to be authorized, fast auth, into Web3. And so this widget, this like onboarding widget pretty much, is a component that will be completely usable for any other gateway. So this is kind of, although it's a little bit confusing, it takes a little bit of time to like wrap, it took me a long time at least to wrap my head around. Like when I got it, I was like, holy crap, this idea can kind of expand even beyond Web3 in a way. Like there's benefits of hosting front ends on chain around like open source version control. Like you're able to fork a version of a front end if you don't like it to your thing. Like I can't, if Twitter updates my timeline, I can't just like revert back to a previous version that I like. Like you'd be able to do this with these like decentralized front ends. So yeah, I think it's really sick. It's still very new. The community is still pretty small. And so like if you are interested in this, and the other thing is, the cool thing is you just need to be a front-end developer. You don't need to be the super senior Rust engineer with 15 years of experience in systems design. Like I can talk to students at web development boot camps around the world. And especially you go around the world, Go to India, you go to some of these countries, they pump these people out like nothing, just like teaching them how to build front ends. Now they can be blockchain developers. That's pretty sick. So Sebastian, this is kind of what I was getting at also around developer experience. So yeah, these are just some like examples. This was a workshop I gave in San Francisco. But if you guys have iPhones, something that is worth checking out is this Here Wallet thing. It's pretty neat. It's a mobile app. It's a mobile wallet where if you scan this, in the time in which you're scanning it, and it's called App Clip. This is not blockchain related. It's just a Apple feature where it is a 10 megabyte kind of light app. And what this is instead of having you download the full app, in the time in which you're scanning it here, it's downloading a 10 megabyte app on your phone that gives you the option to open. When you open it, it's looking at your unique device ID as a way to verify your humanity, to then say, I can then deposit 0.01 near in the account, which gives you the ability to create your human readable name. So on Ethereum, you'd have to download MetaMask, go create a Coinbase account, or go to MetaMask, wire money into that account, then go to ENS, pay a gas fee, and a huge fee for claiming a name. And it probably will take 15 minutes to like go get your own human readable name, starting from nothing. This should take no more than 30 seconds. Your private key is stored locally on your phone. So that is just important to note. As you get more money in that account, it will recommend that you write down your 12 words, that you go get a ledger, that you go do something. But the whole point is like easy onboarding. Scan this code, create a wallet, write down your name. Don't worry about seed phrase. Bada boom, bada bing, you have your wallet. You can throw NFT airdrops in here. You can throw an NFT that gives you access to a DAO in here. This is what's possible with flexible key management. This is why I joined Near originally, was because of the account model. I was like, holy crap, I'm tired of trying to get people to download MetaMask. This is not going to work for the masses. This has been, to me, the smoothest onboarding, as long as you have internet and can download the 10 megabyte app. Any questions? Nope.
No, it's been awesome.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much the presentation. I can go on and on about like, here's like a little graphic about Near and other chains. Near's transactions per second is theoretically really, really high, but to be totally honest, there's not enough demand for the network to actually warrant the chain from like processing 100,000 transactions per second. And that's in one shard, by the way. And so, we also have Aurora. I didn't talk about that at all, nor did I talk about Calimero. So Aurora is the entire Ethereum virtual machine rewritten in Rust on Near as a smart contract. I'm going to say that again. They took the entire EVM, rewrote it in Rust, put it in Near as a smart contract, and as more demand came to that contract, it became its own shard. And this is the whole point of sharding. The more demand that comes to the network, specifically for given contracts, they will become their own shard, and therefore increasing the demand for validators. So the more shards, the more demand that happens, you need more validators to process those transactions, therefore increasing decentralization of the protocol. What I love about Near is that it has to, by law, pretty much, decentralize linearly with demand. And I think that's really cool. And so Aurora is the EVM on Near. You can take your Solidity code, just change your RPC endpoint, deploy it on Aurora, and now you benefit from Near's underlying technology while being completely Ethereum compatible. That's really cool. And that's been alive for a long time, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Now, let me tell you a little history with Aurora. We were supposed to launch near with EVM to begin with in May 2020. This was before Avalanche picked up, Polygon, really happened. Any of these other L2s really even started development. The framing at the time was ETH2 is near. And the reason for that is because ETH2 is still today supposed to be sharded eventually. All these layer twos and rollups and stuff, honestly, to me, it seems more like a duct tape and glue solution to scale Ethereum, while actually increasing a ton of centralization points in, like a lot of these L2s are just multi-sigs. And honestly, I'm actually like getting kind of frustrated with this space, because like I'm genuinely interested in decentralization, and yet like the things that get a lot of attention like are the most centralized things. Like Terra, horrible. Like horrible. I don't need to say it now, but I've said it for such a long time before. No one believed me. And I'm like, okay. And I don't want to be the guy being like, haha, I told you so. Because no one likes that guy. But like, I'm just really worried because decentralization doesn't matter until it does. And when it does matter, it's normally too late. And so this is where I really do like the sharded approach. And I'll tell you the caveats as well. Like there's not that many validators on Near right now. And part of it's because there's not a huge, there's 212 validators. That's not a lot. I want there to be more. Now, the cool thing is that there will be more, because there are a lot of really cool projects that will be gaining a lot of demand launching. Now, the other really cool thing is Near hardware. I have it somewhere. It's a blog post. The hardware requirements to run what we call a chunk-only producer. It's a certain type of validator on Near where you don't have to validate all of the transactions and all of the shards. All you need to do is validate a chunk of the transactions in a shard. And what that does is it actually enables you to run way less demanding hardware for running a validator, which is like you're able to run a Near validator, chunk only producer, with, I want to pull up exactly the blog post for you guys so I don't butcher and I just give you guys like the actual resource. This is a thing called Stake Wars. Here we go. You can run a chunk only producer on a less demanding machine, 4-core CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, and 200 gigabytes SSD. That's not that much. That's like a little bit more powerful than like a lot of people's phones. That's pretty cool. If we're trying to build the actual open internet, we need to have hardware requirements that don't require a, $30,000 a month Amazon Web Services server. And granted, that number actually I think came from I think it was either Polygon ZK EVM, where the people running the validators for it are pretty much only able to run them in giant data centers. And that to me is not censorship resistant. That's not decentralized. It might be if you're willing to like run data centers in countries that, I don't know, like Iran, but I wouldn't recommend that either. And so to me, the goal is actually giving power to the people and saying, hey, you don't need a super expensive machine to run a validator.
I have a question about that real quick.
Yeah.
So is that just like validating like individual shards and not the entire chain itself? Is that what you're saying then?
It's only a chunk of the shard.
Okay, so it's not even the whole shard, just a part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so all of this can be seen in the Nightshade paper. This Nightshade is the sharding architecture. You can read this in Nightshade, the systems. So there's this beacon chain. We actually shard the blocks, not the entire chain itself. And so you're validating. It's super meta and honestly fucking confusing. And I've explained it correctly one day and then the next day incorrectly. And so like it's fortunately I do have like the guy who wrote this, like he does correct me, which is nice, but I haven't read this paper in a bit, so I don't want to honestly speak to it if I'm not going to be accurate. Read it. This from Shard Chain to Shard Chunk. Actually, just read it and explain it. Let's see. Ideal conditions, exactly one chunk per shard block. Yeah, in short, like my TLDR of explaining the chunk only producers is you're only validating chunks of the shards. You're not validating the whole shards themselves. But yeah, read the whole paper if you really want to dive into it.
Awesome.
Yep. So one last thing, this one's actually pretty important, especially for Sebastian. You like supply chains. You're that guy?
Yeah.
Great. This one's more relevant for you then. Permissioned environments. Businesses don't want all of their stuff on a public immutable ledger. I don't blame them. You want people to create their own permissioned shard that gives them the option to interact with the permissionless ecosystem under their conditions. I don't want my credit score on a public immutable ledger, but I might want to get an under collateralized loan somewhere. So how can one build a system to give the enterprise the option of running their own environment with the option of interfacing with the rest of the open web? This is what Calimero provides. They're live. This launched not that long ago, like a couple months ago. When people are talking about CBDCs on Near, it's probably, I don't know this for fact, but I would guess they want to run their own shards. I'm assuming they don't want everything totally permissionless, where like the validators can like bring them down. You can create your own validator set. So that's called Calimero. Private shards. Just send it to you guys here. Great. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. That's like the presentation in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions, provide feedback if you guys are trying to like get into the space like more professionally. BAF, if you guys don't know, we placed a lot of people at jobs historically, like over like 50 plus people. We don't make money out of it. We're kind of terrible at that side of things. We do get money from like layer one foundations. Like the way that we're funded is through partnerships with the Algorand Foundation. We receive money from the Ethereum Foundation, Near Foundation, Solana Foundation, Polygon, list goes on. Totally multi-chain. There's a whole team running that sort of day to day. I'm not as involved these days. Like I do pop in and provide feedback to stuff, but we've placed a lot of people at jobs, and I do know how to kind of push people in the right direction in the space if you have any questions.